Hey guys, it's Thorin, and I wanted to make a quick video before I disappear on Tuesday. I'm off for Free Spirit Gathering, as per my usual, and I thought I would make a video about festival preparation because this is something that a lot of people are bad at, and especially if you haven't been to festivals before, if you're not a camper, if all of this is very new and strange and exciting for you, there's a lot of shit that's really easy to forget and fuck up, and you don't have to. So I thought I would actually try to be helpful with Oliver. He doesn't care about your festival experience, but I do. So think of this as your festival checklist. I made a little post-it note here with things that I'm going to say to you, and all of this comes from experience of being stranded or screwed over or just really hungry at festivals. So, first thing, it depends on the kind of festival you're going to, right? Because sometimes it's tenting, sometimes you have cabins, and you need to look into that, okay? Because what happens is people think that they're gonna not bother to learn how to set up a tent or not prepare their tent properly, and then they show up and things are a disaster. Even folks who do the festival thing routinely, right, there are still mishaps that happen. So once you've figured out whether you're going to be in a tent or in a cabin or some other kind of housing device, you need to make sure that your tent is in order. And this, more than anything else, means waterproofing. Because it will rain. It will. It doesn't matter where you're going or what time of year it is. It's going to rain. And it sucks to be in a wet tent with all of your shit getting wet and not having anywhere to hide out that's dry. So, the way you waterproof a tent is, first of all, you get as nice a tent as you can, and you get yourself a can of Scotchgard and some seam sealer. Now, seam sealer might be overkill. You'd have to go to a camping shop, for the most part, I think, to buy seam sealer. And it comes in a tube, sort of like toothpaste with a little brush, and you run it along the seams of your tent, which is where they're weakest, where water can get in, and that protects you. Scotchgard is something you can get at Walmart, and it comes in a spray canister, and it's a waterproofing tool, right? People use it in their cars, and that will also help keep you dry. You should also bring a tarp, maybe even 2 tarps, but at least one to go underneath your tent. You set your tent on top of a tarp because the tarp is waterproof and it prevents water in the ground from seeping up through the bottom, because all of that pressure of you sleeping on the floor of a tent or walking on the floor of a tent pushes water up. The other thing to remember, just generally with tents, with nylon tents and rain, is that if you've got something on the inside of the tent touching the sides, that's an invitation for water to enter and run down. So like if you're using an air mattress, which some people do at festivals, you can totally get away with that now. If you've got something like an air mattress or a bag or anything on the inside of your tent and it's sort of leaning against one of the walls and touching, I don't know how physics works, okay, but when you touch nylon from the inside, it pulls the water through and suddenly the outside is inside, and it's very unpleasant. So whatever is in the tent, make sure it's not touching the sides. You can remedy some of that by using that other tarp I suggested and putting it over top. If you have the cash, and if you're going to be doing the festival thing regularly, it can be worth it to buy one of those pavilions to put over your tent or over the front area of your tent so that you have kind of like a living area. So those are things to consider. But it will rain, you will get wet, and you will be very sorry if you are ill-prepared for this. My friend and I got rained out our very first festival together, and it was like, I mean, it was constant. It was like days of rain, and it wouldn't stop. I mean, we were ready to start collecting 2 of every animal. It was ridiculous. But now we've got a system that's been perfected. So set your tent up when you get it. If you're new to tenting, set it up in your yard or your neighbor's yard or something. Make sure you know how to do that, and then Scotchgard that fucking thing, because you will thank yourself later when it's raining. The second thing sounds totally obvious, but people screw this up, and I screw this up every year. I'm just bad at it, and that's food. You need to make yourself some kind of meal plan. If you're going to be there for more than like 2 or 3 days, especially if you're kind of a bad eater the way I am, like I'm just not good at food stuff. Preparing, thinking ahead of time. I'm awful at grocery shopping. It's a nightmare. Get all of that stuff sorted out ahead of time. A lot of places now, especially if you're at some kind of nicer campground, they'll have some kind of cafeteria or cafe kind of situation where you might be able to purchase a meal plan or pay per meal. This is often expensive, and whether or not it's worth it kind of depends on the festival. I usually don't buy meal plans or pay for meals, except for maybe like once if I'm there for 4 or 5 days. I prefer to bring food because I don't like spending money on food. Food to me is just my least favorite bodily necessity and the thing that I would cut out of life if given a choice, eating. So I would rather spend less money on food and more money on fun things. But you got to be careful because you're going to be running around outside. It's probably going to be hot. You're going to be moving more than you're used to, probably, which means you're burning more calories. You have to eat more. And it helps to bring smaller volume foodstuffs with higher caloric content. That's how I get by. That way you're not trying to shove as much into a cooler or a car, but you're still eating enough, right? Like I'll go through a whole jar of peanut butter in a festival week. There's always bread, lots of carbohydrate-y things. There was one year where I brought MREs. When I do long distance hikes, I'm a fan of the MRE system where you cut everything out of the MRE and you just have the packs and you leave the heat source. And because warm food is just a luxury that you don't get with long distance hiking. But I've employed some of those methods with festivals. And if food isn't particularly important to you, that can be a good way to go. But be mindful, plan your meals. Don't just trust that dinner will happen because sometimes it doesn't happen and then you're sad. Been there. My first festival, again, underpacked food and then we got flooded out of our tent. And thank God for the heathens and their hospitality because we got taken in and adopted into a cabin and they fed us pasta and mead and forever cemented themselves into my heart after that first festival. So yes. Item number 3 is cash. Generally speaking, you won't need a lot of it, but if you're at a festival, it's never a bad idea to have some cash just because you don't know, right? You're probably not going to have access to an ATM. It's not impossible. There are some festivals that have them. Often you're way the hell away from other things, and it's such a drag to have to leave a campground to find the nearest Walmart or something because you need an ATM. Like, that just sucks. So try to stash some cash somewhere in case there's a merchant there that you've just fallen in love with who only takes cash, or you forgot the food thing and you failed on that, and there's a hot dog stand that happened to me once, right? I've never been so desperate for $1 in my whole life as that festival when I just failed at food and then someone rolled in with a hot dog cart. Like, I was willing to trade things. Yeah, so anyway, just a little bit of cash. You don't need to go nuts, but something, stick it in the glove box of your car or something. Sunscreen. Sunscreen is critical. That's another one of those things that sounds obvious, but everybody forgets it. And you don't realize how much time you're spending outside in direct sunlight. And people get heat stroke all by them. Like, sunscreen isn't going to protect you from that. But you're exposing yourself to more perilous conditions than you realize a lot of the time. And a nasty sunburn can ruin your day and many days after that. So it's worth it to get sunscreen and get the good stuff. Get the sports stuff that doesn't come off and you get sweaty and disgusting and you're naked at the fire circle. That's the sunscreen you want. Bottle opener or wine bottle opener, whatever. Just don't don't be me that one year where you're trying to open a bottle of wine by using the end of a fork and ramming the cork into the bottle, because that just makes you look desperate and sad. And I've been that person plenty of times and it sucks. So bring the bottle opener, bring the whatever, just if you're going to be boozing it up, make sure that you have all of your boozing accoutrements, because that's just sad. And then what ends up happening is you start wandering other portions of the festival grounds, sort of hollering into people you don't know's tents and cabins and asking if anybody can be of assistance. And thank God, generally speaking, pagans are nice and sympathetic to the plight of aspiring alcoholics like myself. But it's just kind of embarrassing, and bring your own fucking bottle opener. You'll thank yourself. In fact, keep an extra one in your glove box, because that's what I do after many years of forgetting the bottle opener. The last thing is extra stuff to share and trade, because what ends up happening is right around day 3, people start really missing the things that they forgot, and you're going to feel more like getting out there and making friends if you haven't already, and having an additional bottle of wine or an additional pack of hot dogs or something is a really good way to make some new friends and create some solidarity, and it's a gateway to new bonds with new people. And everybody loves that stuff. There's always somebody like me who's failed to prepare well enough. And you can spot people who it's their first festival and they're sort of floundering. If you've got extra things, like an extra tent pole left over from somewhere, or tent spikes, right? Tent pegs. Things like that. That's just how you make friends. So whatever it is, carry an extra of it. Like if you think it would be beneficial to somebody else, an additional thing of sunscreen, an additional bottle of mead, that sort of thing. An additional couple of bucks to help feed the desperate crying girl at the hot dog stand. Thank you, random guy. I still remember that. So, yeah. Basic festival preparation. It's a lot of fun, but it's really easy to... it's easy to sort of inconvenience yourself with just really simple oversights that make you feel stupid in the moment. There was one year that my friend and I got to the campground and we had the tent bag and the tent poles, but no tent. I don't know that we ever found the tent, but the tent itself was gone. And I'm sure what happened was we aired it out once we got back from a festival. Because that's the other thing that people don't know is when you've been camping, you need to take your tent out when you get back home, and you need to dry it out and make sure it's clean. Otherwise, it will mildew and get disgusting in that bag. So take it out. And anyway, I guess somewhere along the way, our tent disappeared. So sadness. That was a trip to Walmart for us, when we would have much rather been naked somewhere. So everybody lost out on that one. All right, that's it. For those of you who are going to festivals, have fun. Don't get sunburned, and be moderate with your boozing, because that can lead to bad things. So, yes. I'll see you at Free Spirit if you're going to be at Free Spirit.